Hey everyone and welcome to my channel. Now today's case is one that's not very heard of. Everyone that I spoke to about it just didn't have any idea about anything to do with it, which is insane. I don't know if it's more well known in America maybe. It's wild. It's really wild. As I get into it you'll know why. So in June 2014, Derek and Maria Broadus and their 3 children aged 5, 8 and 10 bought 657 Boulevard. It was a $1.3 million home, 6 bedrooms, absolutely amazing, and it was their dream home. It was around the corner from where Maria grew up as a kid, and Derek had worked really hard in the insurance company that I worked at to become senior vice president to be able to afford this house. Even the kids loved it. It was just huge. They was even talking about which fireplace Santa was going to come down at Christmas, which is just so cute. 3 days after the sale, Derek was at the house on his own. It was night time, so it was dark, and he went out to check the mail, and obviously they'd only bought the house 3 days ago. There was nothing really in the letterbox, a few bills, a few leaflets, and then there was a card-shaped envelope, and on the front in thick clunky handwriting said the new owner. Now I'm going to read you this letter. It is very long, but I'll put a picture up on the screen so you can follow along, so it's not just looking at me reading, but just get ready. It's mad. So the inside of the letter was typed and it said, "Dearest new neighbour at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighbourhood. How did you end up here? Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within? 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. I see already that you have flooded 657 Boulevard with contractors so that you can destroy the house as it was supposed to be. Bad move. You don't want to make 657 Boulevard unhappy. You have children. I have seen them. So far I think there are 3 that I have counted. I asked the Woods to bring me young blood and it looks like they listened. Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested? Better for me. Was your old house too small for the growing family, or was it greed to bring me your children? Once I know their names, I will call to them and draw them to me. Who am I? There are hundreds and hundreds of cars that drive by 657 Boulevard each day. Maybe I am in one. Look at all the windows you can see from 657 Boulevard. Maybe I am in one. Look out any of the many windows in 657 Boulevard at all the people who stroll by each day. Maybe I am one. Welcome, my friends, welcome. Let the party begin." And then in a typed signature, it was signed The Watcher. So it was late and Derek was understandably very scared. I mean, I would have packed my bags and left. I wouldn't care, I would just be out of there. But he ran inside and he turned off all the lights and he called the police. The policeman came and was understandably very confused. He just didn't know what was going on. He asked Derek if he had any enemies, and Derek obviously said no one that he could think about. And he also told Derek to move a large piece of construction equipment which was in the back garden in case the Watcher tried to throw it through the back porch. So Derek went back home to his wife and kids, and that night him and Maria wrote an email to the previous homeowners, the people that had sold them the house. These were called John and Andrea Wood, and they replied to the email and said that they'd only ever received 1 letter in the full 23 years that they'd worked there, shortly before they moved out. The Watcher made similar points about watching the house, but they just didn't think anything of it and just binned it. They'd obviously, it's the only one they'd ever got, so they weren't really that bothered by it. But they were very helpful to Derek and Maria and actually went with them to the police station, where the police said not to mention it to any of the other neighbours as they were all suspects now. Understandably, the Broaduses for the next few weeks were on absolute high alert. They were very careful when they let the kids play in the back garden, and if they went too far away, Maria would shout back at them and get them to come back inside because she was just so scared of who could be watching, who could be waiting for them. Derek also cancelled an important work trip to stay home. They were just absolutely terrified. So one day Derek was showing a couple around the house from the neighbourhood, and the woman actually said it'll be nice to have some young blood in the neighbourhood, which obviously freaked Derek out because that's what the person in the letter said, but nothing really came of that. So 2 weeks after the first letter, Maria was driving past her house to pick up the mail and sort out paint samples, and as she looked in the mail she recognised the letter immediately and called the police. So the police found the letter and it said, "Welcome again to your new home at 657 Boulevard. The workers have been busy and I have been watching you unload carfuls of your personal belongings. Have they found what is in the walls yet? In time they will. I am pleased to know your names now and the name of the young blood you have brought to me. You certainly say them often. 657 Boulevard is anxious for you to move in. It has been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house. Have they found all of the secrets it holds yet? Will the young blood play in the basement, or are they too afraid to go down there alone? I would be very afraid if I were them. It is far away from the rest of the house. If you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream. Will they sleep in the attic, or will you all sleep on the second floor? Who has the bedrooms facing the street? I'll know as soon as you move in. It will help me to know who was in which bedroom, and then I can plan better. All of the windows and doors in 657 Boulevard allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house. Who am I? I'm the watcher, and I've been in control of 657 Boulevard for the better part of 2 decades now. The Woods family turned it over to you. It was their time to move on and kindly sold it when I asked them to. I pass by many times a day. 657 Boulevard is my job, my life, my obsession. And now you are too, Brothers family. Welcome to the product of your greed. Greed is what brought the past 3 families to 657 Boulevard, and now it has brought you to me. Have a happy moving in day. You know I'll be watching. And it was also signed The Watcher again. So this letter, he actually addresses the Brothers by names, which is something that I'd not done before. And he also knew the birth order and nicknames of the children. Something else he knew, which was very strange, is that there was an enclosed porch at the front of the property, and one of the kids was painting inside on an easel, and it was hidden by plants from the front of the house, so you couldn't actually see in unless you were around the side or the back of the house. And in this letter he asked if she was the artist of the family, which obviously he'd seen her painting, but she was inside an enclosed porch and not very many vantage points could have allowed him to see inside that. So after this second letter, Derek and Maria stopped bringing the kids to the house and put a hold on their plans to move in. They didn't know whether they could anymore. They was obviously very scared. A few weeks later, the third letter arrived asking where they'd gone, saying 657 Boulevard misses you. Now, police had absolutely no idea who could be writing these letters. There was no DNA, no fingerprints or anything, apart from a small piece of female DNA on the envelope. So let's just jump into theories about who the Watcher might be. Now, 657 was a huge house and it was very, very desirable. And the Woods actually said that when they put it up for sale, a few people had actually offered them above the asking price for the house, but obviously Derek and Maria got it, so for a while they thought it might be someone that was annoyed about not getting the house. However, the Woods soon cleared this up and said that one of the people that was putting in a higher asking price actually had to drop out of the deal due to a medical condition, and the other one found another home, so I can't see why they'd be so bothered if obviously they've willingly dropped out of the deal. The amount of detail in the letters leads a lot of people to believe that it was a neighbour. Now, they identified like the Brothers' car, obviously the easel in the porch was only visible from like certain points of view, and it wasn't visible just from the street. And also the fact that they knew the kids' names. Obviously Maria used to go into the garden and shout them back when she thought they'd gone too far, so whoever was writing these letters had to be close enough to hear her shout their names. Now, Derek was chatting to a neighbour called John one day, and he mentioned a family called the Langfords. The Langfords' house was in between John and Derek's house, and it consisted of Peggy Langford and her adult children who had all lived there since the 60s. Now, John paid special mention to Michael Langford, who didn't have a job, so he was home all day, and he was described as being a bit odd. Now, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and was known around the neighbourhood for doing things like going into people's back gardens and peering through the windows, but everyone that knew him said like he was harmless. He just did that. He wasn't malicious in any way. Now, if you remember in the first letter, the Watcher said that he'd been watching the house since the 60s, which is when they had lived there since. It also said that the Watcher who was writing the letters had been watching the house for the best part of a decade, and said that his dad had watched it before him and then his grandfather before him, and the dad of the Langford family, who was called Richard, actually died 12 years prior to the first letter, so obviously fits the timeline. The police were well aware of this by this point and brought Michael in for an interview, but he obviously denied anything to do with the letters. But police did note that the way he spoke and like the narrative of everything matched the letters. He was very, very similar, but there wasn't enough evidence to charge him with anything, and they had to let him go. So Derek was getting increasingly mad, obviously. His children had been threatened and he couldn't move into what was his dream house. He actually set up webcams inside 657 Boulevard and he used to go there on a night and hide in the dark, waiting to see if anyone would come past. They also hired a private investigator who didn't find anything, and they hired a former FBI agent who profiled that the person writing the letter was older, just due to the way that the letters were phrased. By the end of 2014, the investigation had kind of stalled. There was no DNA, there was no digital trail, literally nothing. They were stuck. The Broadduses had had enough by this point and were actually trying to sell the house, but because of the history of it, no one wanted to buy it. They actually applied for something to like split the property in two, to make it like two properties, but what would have been the new properties was too small by 3 foot, so they didn't allow it, so it just had to stay as one big property. So one night, police were outside watching the house and just seeing if anyone was doing anything suspicious, if any cars came past, and one did. So a car came past the street and stopped for what was a very strange amount of time. So they tracked the car, and it actually belonged to a woman. Her boyfriend lived on the same block as 657 Boulevard, and his girlfriend actually said that he was into very dark video games, and in one of them he played as a character called the Watcher. Now some people think that she got confused when describing this and actually thought that he meant the Witcher, which is obviously another game. But anyway, they wanted to speak to him and he agreed to interview twice, but he didn't turn up for either of them. But there was no evidence to be able to charge him. He'd not done anything wrong, so they couldn't follow this up, and this just went cold. So another theory, and not one that I really believe, is that the Broadduses were actually doing this themselves and had created the Watcher themselves. So the Broadduses actually went into a financial battle and tried to sue the Woodses because they didn't disclose when selling the house that letter that they'd received. So it is worth mentioning that the Broadduses' old house was only worth £300,000. That's a huge jump to go from a £300,000 house to a $1.3 million house, and some people believe that they just couldn't afford it and they'd got in way over the head and needed a way out of the contract without selling. Other people just thought they were doing it for the fame and they just wanted a movie deal and some popularity. Personally, I don't think it was the Broadduses. I do think it was one of the neighbours, and the Langfords are very suspicious. Let's just say that. I don't think they'd threaten their own kids just to get some money. I can't see it being a thing, especially since they were actually putting hold on the plans to move in to protect the children. Like, if it was them, they wouldn't be that scared. So I'd love to know what you guys think about this case. I can't believe how unknown of a case it is. Nobody seemed to know what I was talking about. Your theories in the comments, and if you've got any cases that you would like to see me cover, whether they're solved or unsolved or well known or not well known, I've got a list going at the minute, but I will add them to it if you comment them below. Please subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up, because it would don't know why I did that. It would really help me out, and I'll see you in the next one.